Let's focus on the ongoing drama that is the B.C Conservative Party and our official opposition. Well, today, the B.C Conservatives Management Committee just told John Rustad to step down. Now, that's not some media spat or social media spat. That's the party brass saying to Mr. Rustad, you've lost the room. The letter calls out the chaos and turmoil under his watch. Translation, folks, it's over for John Rustad. And, of course, Mr. Rustad said he's not going anywhere. I want to read you a portion of the letter from the Senior Management Committee. Now, it's important to note there's 7 members who signed this letter. They're all Rustad's people. That's the other thing. So these are the people that Rustad wanted on this board, and they've come out against Mr. Rustad. Listen to an excerpt here. Quote, "As the leader, it is your responsibility to unite the party around a common vision and to lead us forward with purpose and clarity. As evidenced by sagging poll numbers, memberships, fundraising, a shrinking caucus and staff, philosophically inconsistent policy, low morale, and perhaps most importantly, a lack of enthusiasm and tepid endorsement from our membership, your leadership has ceased to serve that purpose." It goes on to say the current sitting members of the Management Committee of the Board of Directors cease to have confidence in your leadership. We ask that you immediately step down as leader, allowing for a subsequent leadership contest to choose a new leader to take the party into the next provincial election. Ouch. Talk about chaos and turmoil. Now, here is the story, the fundamental story. John Rustad caught lightning in a bottle last year. He rode voter frustration, anger, and fatigue all the way to the edge of the Premier's office. Credit where it's due, he took a fringe party and made it relevant. I'll give him that. But leadership isn't just about momentum, it's about discipline. And he's never, ever built any. When dossiers started surfacing about his candidate's outrageous comments, anti-vaccine rants, racist posts, you name it, Rustad's answer was, let the voters decide. Quite frankly, folks, that's not leadership, that's avoidance, and voters noticed, and so did his board. Now, I get asked often by many, why are you always so negative about John Rustad? Well, first of all, I sat in a caucus with John Rustad as a BC Liberal MLA, so a lot of members of the media don't have that perspective in view. I saw him every single day, and from what I saw, I didn't see somebody that had the royal jelly to be the premier of this province. I'm not sure he has the temperament to be the premier of this province. That's why I released that dossier of his candidates during the last election campaign, and sometimes I've been accused by some members of the BC Conservatives of perhaps even costing him from not becoming a premier of this province. I may have cost the election for the BC Conservatives. So be it. I was doing my job. So since that election, the wheels have flown off. I think I've been proven right by some of the comments that I've made prior to the election, during that election, and after the election. 5 MLAs have either walked or been shown the door. Dallas Brody and Tara Armstrong bolted to form their own micro-party, 1BC. Jordan Keeley left in solidarity. Eleanor Sturko was kicked out, and just this week, Amelia Boltby quit and told Rustad to resign. Take a listen to her comments on the way out.
It is with regret that I'm here to announce that I am leaving the BC Conservative Caucus effective immediately, and I will be sitting as an independent MLA. Over the past weeks and months, I have witnessed, along with all British Columbians, the unraveling of John Rustad. From concerning accusations of cheating and fraud to John's conduct in caucus meetings, these, along with many other factors, have led me to the conclusion that I can no longer remain in the BC Conservative Caucus.
That was Amelia Boltby, MLA from the Okanagan, speaking about John Rustad as she stepped away from the caucus. Folks, that's not renewal. That's a mutiny. Then there were the staff blow-ups as well. Remember that. Remember when a caucus staffer called the orange survivor's flag a disgrace? Rustad eventually fired her, but the damage was done. If you can't keep your own house in order, how are you supposed to run a province? Now, Mr. Rustad tried to claim a fresh mandate through a leadership review. He bragged about getting 70%. Well, what he didn't mention, of course, is almost no one voted. There was low voter turnout, questionable memberships, and a party still at war with itself the next morning. That's not momentum. That is denial. And here's the bigger problem. The Free Enterprise Coalition that's dominated BC politics for decades is now fractured, and Mr. Rustad isn't the guy to fix it. The coalition that wins in this province is broad. It's federal conservatives and federal liberals, suburban families and business moderates. It's pragmatic, not ideological. Right now, the BC Conservatives are almost entirely conservative. That's not a coalition. That is a political cul-de-sac. To win, the right of center movement has to rediscover something it's forgotten. The political middle. Call it radical centrism, clear lines, grown-up tone, and real focus. That's what's been missing. Voters don't want another culture war. They want hospitals that work, housing approvals that move, and bills that stop climbing. Now, if the Conservatives want to look like a government in waiting, they need a leader who says one strike for bigotry or conspiracy nonsense, and you're out. No more the voters will decide when a candidate embarrasses the entire party. The NDP isn't unbeatable, but you can't take them down acting like a Facebook comment section. Rustad, quite frankly, isn't wired for that. That's the way I felt a long time ago. He was the right disruptor at the right time, but the wrong steward for what comes next. The board's letter makes it clear his lightning moment has truly passed. He turned a protest vote into a near win and then lost control of his own team. The next leader needs to widen the tent, bring in moderates, attract suburban professionals, recruit serious people who actually want to govern. Build policy that touches groceries, rent, and wait times. Talk to people where they live, not just the folks yelling online. David Eby's government, let's be very honest here, is vulnerable. There's affordability issues, housing issues, healthcare issues. Everywhere you look, all I see with the NDP here in BC are weak spots. I haven't even mentioned the biggest deficit in the history of this province until next year, when it'll be even, well, bigger. But to take advantage of that, the opposition needs credibility, not chaos. And right now, the only thing holding the NDP up is a Conservative Party too busy fighting itself to look like an alternative. So yes, the management committee is right. It's time for Rustad to go. He sparked something real, but instead of shaping it into a movement, he let it burn out of control. BC's free enterprise movement can rise again, but only if it trades outrage for outcomes and slogans for solutions. And that's how you build trust. Rebuild trust, certainly. And to rebuild the center, well, you've got to work very hard. And right now, it's not going to happen under John Rustad. And that's, folks, is how you win. That's how I see it. Give me a call on the open line. Would love to hear from you. Is it time for John Rustad, leader of the opposition, and a guy who was almost premier, to go? 604-280-9898. That's 604-280-9898. Star 9898 on your cell phone. Let's go to Dave and Ladysmith. Hi, Dave.
Well, hi. I voted for conservatives, and I had no idea who John Rustad was. Now I'm just like, how do we get a conservative leader like Jean Charest, I'm old enough to have voted for Brian Mulroney, middle of the road, none of the crazy stuff that comes out of Alberta. The Pierre Poilievre, the RCMP are crazy. The RCMP are out to get us. It just, like, how do we get conservatives back into the middle of the road so they don't scare the living crap out of us?
Yeah.
And that's what I think, what he does. He should have, when that woman said that terrible stuff about First Nations, my God, he should have just hit the roof over that. No, he didn't. And so then I noticed, the guy doesn't know what he's doing.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's first of all, thank you for your call, Dave. I really appreciate your thoughtful comments. In the challenge, I always believe no party should be running government for too long. I think change is good. It's healthy for democracy. And you should always be a government in waiting. The challenge the conservative movement has had is when you had the reform movement come in post Brian Mulroney, it is a prairie populism. And with populism, it's hard to be centrist sometimes. And sometimes, look, populists come and it's a grassroots movement that is mad and angry at the status quo. Generally, that can be healthy for democracy, but you evolve. and you move towards certainly govern from the center. And we are in the midst of this populist sentiment globally. Globally, this is happening, never mind Donald Trump, to the point where we're fighting these culture wars, but we're forgetting about what we're there for. And I've said this many times on the show, especially at this moment, in regards to tariffs, challenges that we have, a differing trade relationship with the United States, the rise of Asia. We have to get back to the basics, which for me, when it comes to the province, is reminding ourselves the basis of our prosperity, which is the economy. And Conservatives should be good at handling the economy. They should be known for that. But they go off on these side projects and tangents of whether it's ostriches, whether it's, you can disagree with the Cowichan decision. I think there's a huge concern there. But don't pick fights with First Nations communities. You got to bring them along in regards to attracting business. So there's lots of little things they've been involved in, these culture wars, predominantly coming in from the United States. That's not us. So I want an alternative to the NDP because they've done nothing well under David Eby. Everything's fallen apart. Yet David Eby is leading John Rustad significantly in the polls. And the last poll from Abacus, they're leading by 7 points province-wide. And in Metro Vancouver, where you win or lose the election, they're leading by 9 points. So it's just fundamentally broken, and it doesn't work unless Conservatives will vote Conservatives, the NDP will vote for NDP. The ones in the middle, the federal Liberals, right now, according to the polling that we've seen, 70% of them vote NDP. You got to bring some of them over. And that's how the political math works in our province. If federal Liberals, majority of them, and federal Conservatives vote together in this province for a coalition party, a centrist party, guess what? They beat the NDP the vast majority of times the last 60 years. That's the political math. And right now, we can't do that under John Rustad. Let's go to Trevor in Surrey. Hi, Trevor.
Hi, thanks for having me on the show here. I know, but look at the other political spectrum here. We had arrogant, narcissistic technocrats basically telling us what to do, sticking a finger in our face and telling we're nothing but war criminals and everything else under the umbrella here. But that being said...
You're talking about the NDP or the federal Liberals? Sorry.
I'm talking about both, in all honesty.
But they're getting elected. I don't care if it's a minority government. There is something within the voters that say, I am not going to hand the keys to Poilievre. I'm not handing the keys to John Rustad. I mean, ultimately, you got to win. You want to govern. You got to govern from the center, right? And I don't disagree with your comments on the other side. But there's something fundamentally where the Canadian psyche, the Canadian voter goes, hang on, I ain't going to hand you the keys. And they're going to hand you the keys. What's the point? If you're not going to govern, what's the point, right? Ultimately, the old argument with the NDP was, the difference between a BC New Democrat and a BC Liberal. A BC Liberal would rather win an election. A BC New Democrat would rather win an argument. Right now, the BC Conservatives would rather win an argument rather than win an election. You want to govern at the end of the day.